I think, James, we might kick it off. And obviously, thank you everyone for tuning in this afternoon. As mentioned, this is our Schoolbox release walkthrough webinar for version 21.1. And I know that we are really excited about showing you the new features that are rolling out over the coming months and giving you an opportunity to ask questions. So obviously, the man that will be running us through the product this afternoon, I obviously want to introduce James Leckie, who is the Director and Chief Product Owner here at Schoolbox. So James, thank you again for running this through. And for those of you that don't know me, I am Dwayne. I am the Head of Education and Innovation, a new role. I was previously within our customer success team, and I'm here to just MC and drive us along this journey. So just a bit of housekeeping. If you do have any questions, there is a Q&A area at the bottom. We will try and answer those questions throughout the webinar and ask some of them live of James later on down the track. So if there is anything you want to know or further clarification, please let us know. So to kick things off, obviously, this webinar is going to give us a snapshot of what's taking place within the 21.1 release. But also what we have on the 23rd of November is a deep dive into our integration with IntelliSchool's Albitros analytics platform. This is something that's really, really exciting for us as a business. One of the strongest partnerships we've formed, and being able to use Schoolbox data and data within the student management system to really extend the capabilities of Schoolbox as a platform. So this will be announced shortly. So when you get that information, please jump on, register. We'll have James in that. We'll have Dave from IntelliSchool there, and hopefully we'll have a couple of special guests from some of our schools. So if you haven't yet, and when that comes out, please register. So James, look, I'm not going to hold back. I'm going to give you the reins. So when you're ready, kick off and show us through version 21.1.
All right, thank you very much, Dwayne. So today we're going to be going over quite a lot of functionality, and you're going to have to bear with me if things are a bit rocky. It's always a challenge to get all of this working and rolling, but it is a live demonstration. So let's get underway and start looking at what's coming out with this release. So as per tradition, I'm going to start in the admin system and just have a quick talk about some of the new features within the admin side of the system, what you can expect to see in this new update. So firstly, part of this new update, we've added some new functions to alert you about recent updates in the product. So now when you log into the admin dashboard, you'll actually see the latest updates as they're rolling out. And you can click through on these and it'll take you to the release notes. So just keeping you up to date on the latest releases as they come up. We want to make sure that you know that we're always updating it. And so you'll see these changes appear here in that dashboard. On top of this, we've also added an alert that will let you know when there's a new major update available for you to upgrade to. So when you log into the dashboard, if we've released a new major update like this one that we're about to do, and you are still running a previous version, you're actually going to get an alert pop up. Obviously, it's not showing now because I'm running the latest release, but for those that are running a release or so behind, you're going to see an alert. It is dismissible, but you can also book your upgrade from that alert directly. So you'll be able to book in and schedule that upgrade, making it just that little bit easier to know when there's an update available and when you need to action that upgrade. While I'm here, you'll also notice that SimCheck is now featured as one of the services that is available. And I'll be talking about SimCheck and what that means. But fundamentally, that's going to replace the Plag Scan service. The SimCheck service, there's a status page behind this, so you can click through and see the status page. We've also added a CAMI status page as well. So if you want to see the status of those services, you can just click on them and get a bit more information about how that service is functioning from their perspective as well. One thing that we've added to this release in the admin system is the grades page has been upgraded and updated. As always, you can manage your learning management grades from here, but we've also added the ability to easily delete those records. Previously, it was a support request if you wanted to delete a grade system from this area. Now you can just click on the button. It should be noted that when you delete a grade system, it's not going to impact historical data. So any historical feedback or results you've given to students are not going to be just deleted by this action. They're all still going to have their results and feedback, and that's not going to be impacted. But what this is going to do is prevent anyone from using this grading system in the future. Obviously, you've got to be a bit careful if you've got assessments that are still live that are using this grading system. You don't want to get into that sort of situation. So what we recommend is just archive it maybe for a year or something like that until it's no longer in use actively, and then you can safely delete that marking system from Schoolbox. And so it'll no longer show up for anyone in the future. Up next, permissions and staff permissions have been something that we've been asked to improve over quite a long time now. It's been a constant thing to be asked in the forums, and a lot of you have had executive or IT reviews of your security and your access rights, and that's led us to review and look at our access rights as well. In keeping with that, we've now updated the roles area within Schoolbox to allow you to specify exactly the permissions that are going to be available for those users. So here you can see exactly what permissions are set, and I can actually edit those and control exactly what permissions I want to give to each staff role within the system. Now, the idea here is I've obviously got just a staff role, but what we were thinking is that most likely you're going to create roles for coaches, for admin staff, maybe for council members. All of those different types of staff will have their own roles within Schoolbox, and then you'll be able to control on a per role basis the access rights they have. And the types of things you can control are their access to the Pastoral Care module, their access to student grades, their access to student contact information, anything like that you might want to lock down and prevent a person from accessing, even though they're a staff member, you might want to prevent them just to minimize that risk of exposure of that information. So it's really about controlling who has access to what information. So this is really allows you to tighten up the controls. And so we imagine that a lot of people are going to review their security in light of this, and perhaps create some additional roles for staff. Be aware that you can clone roles in Schoolbox. So via the user management dashboard, you are able to clone an existing role using this clone role feature. So this is really useful if you want to set up a new role. You can just clone it out, and that will actually make sure that all the existing access rights that the previous role had are carried over to the new role. So if you wanted to create a new, say, faculties or ground staff role, you could create that role, copy all the permissions over, and then go back into the roles area and adjust what access they have, taking away their access to student grades, taking away their access to student profile information or contact information. So you can sort of don't have to start from a clean slate, I guess, with every permission. While I'm on that modify screen, you would have noticed there's this new interface where you can modify the permissions. We've also adopted that for the year lists as well. So I'll just access the years. If I can find them. Always fun trying to find things in the admin system right down the bottom. Here we've got the updated area for years. And if you remember in the current release, you're probably looking at, this is a big table with lots of tick boxes. It's also been updated to this interface, so you can more easily manage what access permissions people have got. You'll see here, you can also click on them and it handily highlights exactly what they've got across the different ones. So if you want to see, who else has got that access rights, you can do that through here as well. So all of these have been updated now, so you've got control over exactly what permissions they have. All right, moving on, and let's have a look now at the pastoral improvements. And this is probably the area of the system that got some of the most substantial upgrades. The pastoral system, for many of you know that the pastoral system is a really popular piece of our system. It gets used more than a lot of other parts of our system, and to our surprise as well. When we launched it, we knew it was something that schools wanted, but we didn't realise how important it was. And with that in mind, we wanted to really extend and enhance that capability within the pastoral system. So some of the feedback that we've received is around how do we make it more accurate, and how do we make it more efficient for teachers to create pastoral records? We know they're creating a great volume of pastoral records, but how do we make it easier for teachers? So in this update, we now have, for each of the pastoral types that you have within your platform, you can adjust the flag settings. Now, these flag settings allow you to highlight on the class list, on the attendance page, and on the student's profile page that records of that type exist. And a flag shows up as an icon and a count. So we'll have a look at that and what that looks like in just a moment, but you're able to control and highlight those different types of records throughout the system. Now, we expect this would be used for things like medical plans, individual needs, learning, ILPs, anything along that line that you want to store in the pastoral system, but you want to make more visible to the teachers who are teaching that student that that information is in there. Of course, the flags will respect all of the permission settings. So if a teacher doesn't have access to the record, they won't see the flag, but if they do, they will see the flag. So all the usual visibility controls are part of that as well. Below the flags, we have this general template area, and with the templates, we wanted to allow you to, I guess, pre-configure the content that is entered into a pastoral record. And so this template is going to let you quickly set up a pro forma, fill in all the standard details. You might have a table in there with fields to fill in. You can do whatever you like, really, and have space for the final details to be contributed as they're creating that record. But this is going to be pre-filled when you go to create a record of that type. We should also mention that tokens are supported here. So I can address and personalize these templates so that when they get created on a student's record, they're personalized with the student's name and details into that record. So it's a nice handy time saver as well. The teacher doesn't have to worry about putting in the name of the student. This also works in the multi-pastoral workflow as well. So you can think of it like a mail merge for pastoral records, where when you go to create a pastoral record for the entire class, it will automatically personalize each record for those students. We love that feature so much that we also did it for learning moments. So when you go to create a learning moment as well from the class, it's going to also support tokens, and it'll do that mail merge type function as well. So you can really personalize the records that you're creating either into the learning moments or into the pastoral system. Another part of making it more foolproof and simpler is we've added this lock visibility setting. Lock visibility allows us to prevent the teacher from modifying the visibility rules on a particular record type. So as you know, you already could set up the default visibility rules for a pastoral record. And those visibility rules, they can be whatever you like. You might want to specify them as this record, is always visible to parents and always visible to staff. Now, when I trigger the lock, it won't allow any further customization to records of that type. So it will always have this visibility rule set applied to it. So that's really great for sort of ensuring that there's no mistakes made around the visibility of records. If there's a consistent policy, you want all records of this type to be visible to these types of people, you can now lock that in and not have to worry about it being anything different. Obviously, that comes with some downsides. If it's locked, you can't customize it, adjust it, but pastoral moderators can override the locking mechanism. So pastoral moderators can always go in and override that if they wish, but just regular teachers without the pastoral moderation capability won't be able to override that lock. I think that covers it for pastoral flags, but I think I might actually now have a look at what those flags look like on a student's profile. So I'm just going to look up a student in the system. And so when I land on a student's profile screen, you'll see that these records are flagged. And so it works similar to what you would expect and seen with your SIS flags. And we can still see the SIS flags here above coming through. And it's a similar sort of function. But we had a lot of schools that wanted more flexibility. We wanted to be able to customize and add additional flags that were relevant to their particular use cases. And so now with your Schoolbox, you can build whatever flags you want with whatever icons, whatever colors, with whatever types of pastoral records. And more than that, when you click on these, it'll actually take you through to the details of what that actually is. So here I can see, clicking through, I can see that there's an outstanding performance in Spanish drama as an academic award. So I know exactly what that academic award is related to. So it makes everything really easy for people to access. And if I go back and look at the other one, this one's a behavioural issue. And so I can click into that and see that, you know, they forgot their PE kit. And that was why they got a demerit mark there against their profile. I mentioned these would be available in other places as well. So for a teacher, when they're viewing their class list, these will also appear now alongside the SIS flags as well. So you'll have both in line here. You can turn off the SIS flags and replace them with these if you choose, or you can turn off or not use the pastoral flags and just use your SIS flags. So you can choose which one you want, or you might use a combination of both. So that's also going to appear on the synergetic attendance screen as well. So I know a lot of schools, the attendance screen is really a main stopping point for where teachers get information about their students. And so these flags will also appear there because we know that teachers are looking at it every day, so they'll get access and see these flags. While I was on here, there was something else people probably would have noticed. The new graph in the top right-hand corner here. I'll just explain what's going on with the graph here. This graph is going to show the amount of different record types per month over a 12-month period. So it's going to give you, I guess, an overview of all the types of records that have been created in each month for that particular student. So you'll be able to get a big picture, I guess. Obviously, in my demo data here, I've only got data for the current month. But if you've been adding records over a long period of time, they will all appear as columns in this bar graph here. You can click on any one of these to actually see the details. So it will actually filter to that particular type. So if you want to see what's behind that part of the graph, you just click on it and it will filter the rest of the page. You'll also note we've added in the subtype into the filtering options. Previously, you could only filter on type. We've also added subtype, which has enabled all of these things to happen so that you can search on subtypes. I can preempt one of the questions about flags, which is what period of time the count is for. At the moment, it's 12 months. So that is the number of records that were created in the last 12 months of that particular type. We're probably going to make that configurable before launch so that you can select that. It'll default to 12 months, but it will likely be something that you can control yourselves before we go live. Okay, moving on. So that, I think, covers all of the pastoral updates that I wanted to go through. So we'll move into now some class features that have become available as part of this update. So in the classroom, we've added a few new links into our super nav up here in the top right-hand corner. The first one you'll notice is badge report. And the badge report is designed to leverage the badge feature that we launched at the beginning of the year and allow teachers to really keep track of what goals and achievements the students have been set and are tracking towards. So here we can see the learning goals that the students have got. We can actually filter this just to their goals. So if I want to see what they have as their goals. Now, with badges, I guess we were really thinking about all the different use cases for badges, and we've seen lots of great examples already developing at schools, using badges for learning progressions, like I have in my example here, extracurricular awards, house colours, service achievements, you name it. Like, schools have really embraced the idea of micro-credentials and badges, and this allows teachers to sort of get a good oversight of how their class is going with all of their badges. I can filter it on other things as well. So if I wanted to look at what their outside of the classroom activities are, and I'll remove that as well, we can have a look at the stuff going on outside the classroom. And here we can see we have a student that's the SRC representative, one student's part of the cooking club, another sustainability. So we really get to know the students based on the collection of badges that they have available. When this list gets really long, you will get a scroller happening as well. So you will be able to scroll across and see more and more badges as well. But it's not just about seeing what's going on in your class. It's also about managing your badges. So if I've got a student here that I think has achieved this particular standard, I can quickly click on it, and now I can award that achievement and update that student. So now they've achieved that standard, and I'm recognizing it. Of course, if I want to do something across the entire class, I've got the ability to control for the entire class here. The badge system's been slightly updated as well. So I'm going to set them all to level 9 now. So I can now award that to all the students. And so all the students have been updated. Now they're at the level 9 standard. So you can see how we can quickly track, update, keep an eye on how students are progressing. It's made it much easier for you to, I guess, keep an eye on how the badge system's working within your classroom. It's important to note the badge report's not just for your class. We've also built the badge report so that it works with your extracurricular groups as well. So if you're in a tennis team, you can manage badges just like you do in a class using the same badge report. So it works just the same, but for your extracurricular groups as well. In fact, for any group inside Schoolbox, you will also have a badge report. Okay, moving on. Let's have a look now at probably one of our most requested features, which is the integration with Turnitin. So for a long time, we've been in discussions with Turnitin around how we could best integrate the process of similarity checking into Schoolbox and how we could make it work inside the Schoolbox workflow. We didn't want it to be outside the Schoolbox workflow. We really wanted it to be integrated into our way of doing things so that it supported the teachers. It didn't get in the way of teachers. It wasn't a separate process. So we worked with Turnitin over many years, and they've developed a great API that we've used and leveraged to create this integration. This service is going to be included and bundled as a replacement to the existing PlagScan service. So over the next few months, we'll be actually replacing PlagScan with Turnitin. On deployment of this update, initially, it's probably not going to be live. We are likely going to stage that rollout to minimize disruption. And we're also planning to do it over the summer holidays when there's less potential to disrupt ongoing learning. Of course, in that rollover, PlagScan reports will still be available. So those will be still historically available. But moving forward, once you've been switched over, all the similarity checking will be done using the Turnitin service. We probably will have a more dedicated session on Turnitin. I think I'm probably not going to be able to get to the very depth of all the things that this integration brings in this session. I'm going to give you a high level, just an overview, just to give you a heads up on how it all works. So as per the traditional similarity checking process, it works just the same. When you create a due work item, you accept submissions and you enable the similarity check. So it works exactly the same as previously. There's no change in that workflow. When students submit their work, it will automatically scan their work and give you a report. Now, there's a few changes in this process, so let's just work through each of those. Firstly, when I go to the status screen, you'll notice that we have this new preview submission. And so here we can actually see a quick overview of what the student has submitted. And you can also see the percentage score of the similarity check there, and I can click through into the report. But we thought about this, and although it's great to be able to peek into each student individually and see that information, we thought, well, we've got this great similarity check. Why not make it a bit more visible? And so we built a dedicated report for visualizing the similarity scores within Schoolbox. So when I click into the similarity report, you now get an overview of all of the students' most recent submissions. So just be clear there that one of the challenges here is that Schoolbox accepts multiple submissions, drafts and multiple, and this is fairly unique. Not many systems provide that capability, but it gives us some unique challenges here. And in this particular report, we're actually only showing the most recent submission, and that most recent submission can include multiple files. So in some cases, a student might submit one document. In other cases, they might submit multiple. And we get a similarity check for each of the documents that they submit, whether it's an online document that they typed into the editor, or whether it's an attachment file that they attached. All of those will be reported on. From here, we can review the submission, going to the inline grader, CAMI, updating it, things like that. We can also click into the report itself. We provided some quick filters so that if you're just looking for the students that are above a certain percentage that you might want to take a closer look at, you can filter this report just to those students. We've also added the ability to quickly provide feedback and request a resubmission to those students. So if they're above a certain score and you want to ask them to resubmit, you can now trigger that from this report as well. From here, I can click into this particular document, and now I'm actually going to see the Turnitin report. So with the Turnitin report, similar to the way PlagScan used to work, it's embedded inside the Schoolbox system. I'm not going to take the tour right now, but your teachers are able to take a tour to give them a walkthrough of how this whole Turnitin system works. Now, there are two actual product offerings from Turnitin available, and we'll go into this in more detail, but we're going to be providing the SimCheck version for inclusive, but you'll also be able to purchase an upgraded version that has access to more content, more sources, and that will also be available on request as well. But just to give you a quick run through of how this service is working. So firstly, obviously it scans the document, shows you where it's copied from, gives you the overview. You can click into these and get more detail. Now, some of the features that we've added into this report that haven't been previously available. Firstly, if you attach a worksheet or any attachment, in fact, to your initial due work assessment item, any matches that are in that document will be automatically excluded from matching inside student work. So you think of things like cover sheets or perhaps a worksheet with questions or even an essay question. Those things are going to be automatically excluded from your similarity report. So they won't show up as all the students copying each other, even though they're all submitting the same thing with slight differences. So that's a great feature of this tool. Another one that this will allow you to see is when it matches against other students, it's going to have a whole lot of metadata about what submission box that student submitted to, in what class, and who the student is that they matched against. So you're going to get some really useful information about who actually did they copy that information from. So one of the things you can also do here as a teacher is we've enabled the ability for you to edit this report. So if I decide that that's not a match and I want to remove that, I can actually remove anything and it will automatically update our Schoolbox report result so that this student now gets an updated and modified similarity result. So teachers have got control to remove things that they don't think are appropriate and adjust that value. So it's not just what I guess the SimCheck service says. The teacher actually has some control over that and can actually modify what they want to exclude and what they want to include. It's a really great feature. Finally, up here, you'll notice the flags feature. The flags feature is there so that if the student has attempted to bypass similarity checking, and they can do this by adding white space, they might add punctuation. There's a whole lot of tricks that students will use to try and avoid getting matched. These flags will flag any of those attempts. And so they give you an idea if the student's trying to potentially bypass the checker, the flags will obviously spike up as a result of that. I think that covers all of the similarity checking for now. Obviously, I think we should do a deeper dive to go right into this, and we'll be following this up with some more sessions to go into some of the more specific features about Turnitin. But at a high level, I think that covers off exactly how it's going to work for the moment. What else is there? Just check my notes. I can't see anything else. One thing I should mention is when students submit work, they will be scanned immediately as soon as they submit. But we've also got a setting now that means that students will be scanned again once the work has been fully completed. So what that means is on the due date of the assessment, once everyone's handed their work in, we're going to rescan everyone again. And what that will do is if two people have both submitted the same work, you won't get that situation where one gets 0% and the other gets 100%. You'll both of them will be brought up to 100%. Obviously, it's always at the teacher's discretion to determine, what that means and who's copied who. But it just helps identify the two students that have been involved in that. I think that's about it. We'll move on now. Go into
James, just before you move on, question around the Turnitin side of thing from Fred. The functionality you're showing there, is that part of just that basic level Turnitin, or is it part of that more premium service?
So it's a complicated question, but I'll try and answer it the best I can. So what you're seeing in terms of this report, and I'll just go into one, is actually the premium report. But the difference between the premium report and the non-premium report is very little. In fact, I don't think there's any difference except perhaps the branding. So that's, as far as I understand, that's the difference. Where the difference between the two products lies is not actually in the report and the features that we provide. It's in the content matches that it can achieve. So you can imagine that the premium service is just a much more thorough search of potential sources of copying. So that's really the difference between the premium and the basic. The basic report is basically the same, all the same features, but the difference being the sources of matches that you can find with the more premium service. Does that answer that question?
It does indeed. Thank you very much, James.
No problems. And like I said, I think we'll obviously be putting out some more information on the exact details of those products. I know we're building an infographic at the moment to explain the differences and what things you might need to know. So that's going to be going out soon. So we're doing and we've got a FAQ in the works as well that we'll be publishing soon that will answer a lot of the questions you might have about the SimCheck and Turnitin similarity products and how they will work within the Schoolbox environment. Okay, so moving on, we'll now have a look at LTI assessments. Now, once again, I'm probably just going to do a high-level overview of this, and unfortunately, it's not really at the point where I can really demonstrate a lot of integrations. We haven't got all the integrations working yet, but just to firstly step back and explain LTI assessments. So the LTI standard, Learning Tools Interoperability Standard, is a standard that allows third-party tools to be plugged into a learning management system for the purposes of launching students into learning activities that go beyond just a learning management system. And the LTI tool integration that we have in Schoolbox is based on LTI 1.1. And as you're probably aware, it's a homepage component that you can embed within your homepage. One of the use cases for LTI is to actually use it to create an assessment activity for students. And so with this latest update, we have now created the ability to embed learning tools into the assessments workflow. And what does that mean? It means that you'll get support for tracking student progress. You'll capture their feedback grades that were given in a third-party tool back into Schoolbox. So we'll be able to track exactly those results that they achieved. And finally, it's also got a provisioning service. So what that means is it will automatically set up the users in the third-party system for that particular class. So it has a lot of parts to the LTI spec, and all of those work together to try and create a system where learning management systems and learning tools can work harmoniously together, and you get, you get what we really like to do with Schoolbox is to make it a platform which launches you into those other experiences, and that's what really LTI is about. So, firstly, as part of this upgrade, you would have already seen LTI providers. All of these LTI providers are based on the LTI 1.1 spec. Part of this is now we have support for the 1.3 spec. And you'll be able to configure your LTI 1.3 providers. Now, we're working to try and get Google Assignments, Microsoft OneDrive and Teams, and also Turnitin Feedback Studio, all working within this framework. So each of those providers currently has a 1.3 LTI support. So we're working with them to try and get them integrated, and we're going to be launching how-to guides on how to get those systems configured and set up in your system. So look out for those providers, but that's not the end of the list for 1.3 LTI providers. It is a new standard. It's only been out for about a year now, so it's fairly new. But there are more and more providers coming on board with support for 1.3. The reason 1.3 is important for LTI assessments is that previously 1.1 really didn't have support for the grades feedback workflow, whereas 1.3 has that built into the standard. So now, as part of its standard, it's much better suited to being used as an assessment workflow. So once you've set up that LTI provider and you've configured it, as a teacher, I'm able to go to my course or my class, and I'll just go to my class here. And you'll notice that LTI assessment is now one of the options underneath quizzes, tasks. I can now create an LTI assessment. It works very much the same way as creating any other assessment in Schoolbox. The difference being here is that the learning tool selection area. Now, I haven't got any providers installed at the moment, but once I do, this will become a select box where I'll select from the provider. So I might select, say, for example, Google Assignments. It will then ask me to select the file that I want to share with students as my Google assignment, and it will set up and set that document up as a Google assignment for students. So that's the type of workflow that you can expect from our LTI assessments tool. Once the students have completed that Google assignment, you can actually mark inside Google Assignments as well. So inside that Google Assignments workflow, you'll be able to mark and give feedback, and that result data will come back into Schoolbox and be visible in your mark book. So it'll work just the same way as a standard assessment, but you'll be marking in a third-party system. And that might have a completely different marking system. It's up to that system to implement its own way it does marking, but those results will come back into Schoolbox. And obviously that's really important to keep all of your mark data in one place, to be able to collate that information and to be able to use it for further analytics and report generation down the track. So it's a great workflow to sort of make sure that if you are using third-party tools, that you're not losing all of that important assessment and academic data in that third-party tool. You're actually getting it back into your learning management system. So it's a great feature, and we're really excited about the types of tools that will be able to be plugged in and used through that assessment workflow. Okay, so while I'm just having a look at my class page here, I'm going to just talk about some of the other features that are on class pages. Actually going to a unit page here. One of the features we've been developing is this manage text box area, and you would have seen it here previously called manage all. We decided that it's such an important feature that it can go up into the top nav, and you can now manage your text boxes through this page. Now, when we first launched this, really all you could do was update the title of your text boxes, but now it's been extended to enable you to edit your text boxes. You can also create new text boxes here as well. And interestingly, when I create a text box here, it's not automatically added to the page. So it's almost like a private note that I keep behind the scenes. It's only visible to those that have got right access to the page. So you can sort of treat it like a private space as well. One of the features that is actually already rolled out in a point release recently is the ability to copy and paste images directly into your text box. So you can now copy a file from your file system and just paste it straight in here. You don't have to go through the select box anymore. You can just paste any image you want directly into this area and it will work it out for you. So that's a really handy feature. Drag and drop works as well. So if you want to drag and drop images in there, that all works. So some of those features are just nice to have around the text box. Obviously, it's warning me that I haven't saved this, so I'm just going to save that content. Okay, so next up, while I'm at my sort of looking at my class, one of the features that we have added to the system, and I think, Dwayne, you mentioned this at the beginning, was that we've started a new partnership with IntelliSchools, and that partnership is designed to help us build better insights and build better reports for you on your school data. Now, for a long time, lots of schools have been asking us to build dashboards that include things like attendance data, standardized test data, all of those different data sources that you have around your school. But obviously, Schoolbox doesn't natively have access to that information. It's not part of our core system. Through our partnership with IntelliSchools, we're now able to, through their data lake, give you access to those data sets in one place. So if I look at the Student Analytics tab on Tim Reed here, this is going to launch the new IntelliSchools dashboard. So from here, I'm able to get insights into the student, forget the name. We haven't married up our test data yet. So from here, we can see information about the student, how well they're going, their growth, their behavior. This is all being built based on several different data sources. We're building this from pastoral data, from academic data in Schoolbox, from data inside your SIS. All sorts of different data sources are being brought together to provide the single dashboard. I'll just click through some of these just quickly. There's obviously an attendance report, so you can see the students' attendance. Some behaviour reports. Once again, looking at things like work overdue, how late they're handing their work in, what work they haven't handed in on time, all of those sort of things around their sort of learning behaviours, I guess. We've got some information on academic data from various different subject areas. And standardized testing data through NAPLAN, ASA, anything you really want, basically can be included into this area. And finally, student growth. So this is how much they've changed over time. So there's a lot of data here. And as Dwayne mentioned, we're going to probably have to do a full, dedicated webinar just on the IntelliSchools integration. But I just wanted to give you a quick taste of what this integration is going to look like in Schoolbox and how that's going to work within our platform and how that will be visualized. And so this is just a quick idea of what that will look like. Beyond this, we're also going to be including a dedicated dashboard for the classroom teacher. So there will be a class analytics link here. This is currently doesn't have data in it, but this will bring through a dashboard dedicated for the teacher to see their overall class performance. We're also going to do cohort, year level, subject-based dashboards as well. All of these are going to be included in our basic package that we're offering to schools, along with IntelliSchools. And beyond that, there's going to be a premium package as well that will include the ability to do things like alerts, your own custom reports and dashboards, and lots of other features as well. So please, if you want more information about this, look out for the emails coming out in the next week or two regarding a dedicated presentation and a deep dive into how this will all work and how this will look with inside your system. Okay, so getting towards the end now. So Dwayne, just a heads up if you want to start getting some questions ready. Just some final, housekeeping notes. We have also, as part of this release, included integrations with both Compass and Central SISs. Now, these integrations utilize their APIs. So you can run these integrations no matter where your Schoolbox is hosted. So for customers who want to move to the cloud, the Compass and Central SIS integrations will work across the internet. So they're a great option for schools that want to be in the cloud. Those integrations support bringing through parent relationships, student, staff data, timetables, lots of information is being collated. There's also more roadmap with those two integrations. We're also planning to do additional work, particularly with Compass. We've got a plan to implement assessment right back very soon. So that's on the near-term roadmap as well with Compass. So there's lots of work going on with some of these SISs to build out better integrations and to make our systems really work well together so that where we can leverage the best of both systems. And obviously, towards the end, I always like to talk about the release schedule for this update. As we're going with this release, it's currently in alpha. We plan to do a beta release next week. That beta release will go to your staging servers. So as of next week, you will be able to test out this update and try it out in your staging environment so that you can start to assess. It's important to note at this stage, we always recommend to customers to review their custom work, particularly with this update, because we did a lot of upgrades to some of our libraries and things like that we use to make sure we're running the latest code, and that may have impacted your custom work. So we do highly recommend that if you're got a lot of custom work, that you do review it with this upgrade. With the gold release, we're planning that the gold release will probably be about 3 weeks after next week, so about a month's time. So expect to see that in about a month's time. And I always get asked, what about the cloud service? That normally follows about a week after the gold release is available. It depends on timing and making sure we schedule it in a quiet time. So we'll make sure we schedule the cloud upgrade to happen at an appropriate quiet period. If, of course, things are coming up to school holidays and it's appropriate for us to do releases during the school holidays, I always recommend to use that school holiday time to schedule in your upgrades. Our plan is to have this all ready for those summer holidays. So we expect most customers will be booking and scheduling their upgrades over that summer holiday period at this stage.
Awesome. Thank you, James. I am going to jump on and we are going to, let me work out where this little thing is. Got a couple of questions lined up for you. The first question is associated with the pastoral flags. So a couple of questions. One question of, are the flags able to be configured based on both type and subtype, as well as with those flags, can you produce a report or a screen showing all of the times that those flags have been shown?
Good question. So yes, flags can be used on both types and subtypes, and you don't necessarily have to have. In fact, you don't necessarily have to have them on one or the other. So you can choose where you want those flags, whether the type or the subtype is more appropriate. So yeah, that's completely configurable. To the second part of the question, is there a report on the flags? Yes, technically there is. The report builder has the ability to filter by type and by subtype. So what you would do is build a report for the subtype of the particular flag that you wanted to review, and you'd be able to pull up a report of all the students' records for that particular type or subtype.
Fantastic. And look, sticking with pastoral flags, are the icons configurable?
So the icons are using our default icon set. Currently, they're not configurable. The reason for that is they are they're actually a font, but they're SVG, so they're scalable. But we're happy to take suggestions. I think there's about 50 currently in the list. We're happy to take suggestions if you want to have things added to the list. And I know Matt, our graphic designer, is always happy to build new icons if we request them. In fact, we did add a few extras that we thought might be useful when we were building the feature. I think we added like a heart because, you know, who doesn't want a heart for their pastoral flags? So we've added a few. I think there was about 4 or 5 extras we added specific for pastoral, but all of the standard ones are there as well. So have a look first, but if there is something specific you think that we don't have, some sort of iconography that we don't currently contain, just let us know and we'll add that to the list.
Fantastic. And now we're going to spin off and talk a little bit about badges. This one is around sort of best practice use of badges in that space. Could you, or should you use badges for calling out positions of responsibility, such as school captain, house captain? So those things that are more associated with roles that someone might have in the school rather than, you know, extracurricular activities and things.
Look, I personally think so, because, you know, ultimately those leadership positions are a credential that, you know, that's something that I think, you know, is something that someone's achieved. And personally, I think that it's valuable to reflect that achievement that they have been awarded to that. Obviously, each school probably needs to make a decision on that, on how they think that they should reflect the students' participation in things beyond just learning. But you would have seen in my examples that we had SRC reps and other things like that in our badge sets, and I think they all go towards building a really rich portfolio of what the student's been involved in, what they've participated in, and ultimately with badges, we want to make them exportable and we want them to be something that students can take away with them. And, you know, forever in a day, everyone's asked me, when are you making e-portfolios exportable? But really, I think badges and micro-credentials using the open badge standard give us a really great opportunity for students to take away some of those achievements that they had at the school. And if you can imagine a student taking away their leadership badges that they achieved at school, putting them on their LinkedIn profile, and using it as part of their resume and their future career, I think is a really valuable idea.
Awesome. Thank you, James. And thank you for that explanation around badges and the opportunities that we've got using that, and obviously the reports now that sit there. Spinning off and talking around the Turnitin and the change, obviously one of the key features with PlagScan was the ability for us to have permissions associated with who can see the plagiarism result. With the change to Turnitin, do parents and students, can you still configure who sees what from a plagiarism perspective?
Yeah, good question. So I forgot to mention that, but those settings, as they stand, remain in effect. So it is a policy setting within our learning management system about the visibility of similarity scores, and regardless of how that similarity score is being calculated, whether it's by Turnitin or PlagScan, that visibility policy setting remains. So you can expect that if you've hidden the reports from parents, they still won't be able to see it even after the rollout of Turnitin.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. So there's been a massive number of questions here tied to LTI and LTI providers. Obviously, it's probably helpful to preface that at the moment we've got to go through that testing process to work out which providers are available. But obviously you mentioned a few earlier. Can you just recap which ones we know use 1.3 that we're hoping to get operational?
Yeah, so Google Assignments is probably the big one. And for those that like the Google Classroom style workflow, Google Assignments is sort of a stripped back version of that you can embed in your own learning management system. And basically what it gives you is that ability to hand out a Google document, share it with the whole class. All the students can work on it, and then they can submit it via Google Drive, and actually the teacher then receives it and marks it, and all of that happens in the Google platform, but the results then end up in Schoolbox. So Google's certainly one on the list. The next one is Microsoft. They've recently announced, just about 3 or 4 months ago actually, 1.3 support for Teams, OneDrive, and something else as well, which I can't remember at the moment. It might have been a different Teams integration. OneNote, unfortunately, is still on 1.1, but I'm hoping they'll also update OneNote soon. But Microsoft Teams and Microsoft OneDrive. OneDrive's interesting because it's going to work similar to the Google Assignments workflow. So from what I can see, the Microsoft one is very similar. You create a document in your Microsoft Drive, you assign it to the students, and it will automatically copy that document to each of the students. They'll be able to complete it and submit it via their OneDrive. So it's sort of an assignments, Google Assignments similar workflow for Microsoft OneDrive as well. So it looks like both of those providers are sort of competing for this LTI market and embedding within learning management systems and how that would all work, which is good to see. Because some of them, I think some of them, they've got their own learning, like lightweight learning management systems, and that can be confusing about where they sit alongside a learning management system. So it's good to see them wrapping up the best bits of their learning management systems, but allowing them to be installed in a more complete learning management system like Schoolbox. Some of the others, I know Turnitin Feedback Studio is 1.3, and because we've been working with Turnitin so closely, we'll be working with them to also allow Feedback Studio to be embedded. And that's actually, interestingly, an option that Turnitin will provide schools if they want to have that more sophisticated Turnitin experience that Feedback Studio gives. And it's quite a nice experience. It's got feedback like inline annotations and comments, and it's got a comment bank and things like that. All of those can be wrapped up inside that LTI 1.3 integration as well. Moving on, there's a bunch of others. I know MATLAB is another common one that comes up. ChemVantage. There's a whole range of different sort of learning tools that come up. Like I said, we don't have a complete list yet. We haven't done a really good audit of all the ones that would work. And inevitably, when we launch a feature like this, we get a whole lot of companies reach out to us and say, we've got a 1.3 integration. Can we test it and publish it on your website? And I expect that will happen as this release goes out and the information gets updated on our website about our support for 1.3.
Fantastic. Thank you, James, for that. Time for one last question. For those of you who we haven't answered the questions, we will take them offline and make sure you get a response. But this last question is coming from Brenton Hardy, talking about badges again. Can we import badges from a CSV or something similar to get a cohort set up and operational? As well as, is there an opportunity for us to export or sync that data back into a system such as a SIS or other provider?
Okay, so yes, I think there is, but ultimately, my first thought is that I would like to go down the Open Badge API standard first, because that really gives there's a lot of benefits to that standard in that you get the traceability of the badge, where it came from, who signed it, who applied it. I think yes, a CSV export would be nice, or something for record keeping into your SIS. I'm not sure SISs are going to be supporting badges in the short term. So, you know, I'm maybe a bit optimistic that we could all support the Open Badge API and we could move them into the systems using that. So yeah, I think probably a CSV might be something that we look at. Obviously, all this data is in our database. If you want to access it, we're more than happy for you to pull it out, do your own report. So yeah, by all means, you can pull that out if necessary.
Fantastic. Look, thank you very much, everyone, for your questions this afternoon. I'm supposed to be showing you right now a lovely slide, which is not there. So we always love not sharing the right thing. Thank you for coming along this afternoon. As mentioned, we will be providing follow-up information around the Turnitin integration. We also have a deep dive webinar into the Schoolbox Albitros integration on the 23rd of November. So please keep an eye on your email inboxes, on social media. Jump into those webinars. We'd love to see you. And thank you very much for coming on this afternoon and engaging with this webinar. So thank you, James. And
thank you,
everyone involved. See you all later.